Today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. There is strength in numbers, folks. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Today, I will be talking about energy policy, and I'll be talking about that with my good friend and analyst, John Rossomando. He is brilliant. He gets into the details, he gets into the weeds, and he exposes stories that we may never have thought of. In fact, I know I didn't think of this. You do not want to miss this. He literally does an analysis of Vladimir Putin and why the United States has been manipulated by non-governmental organizations that could allegedly be connected, and some are directly connected to Russian government, and how they have manipulated us on the Green New Deal and, push that in an effort to make themselves the energy giants of the world. You do not want to miss this at all. And we want to talk about why President Biden wants to impose all these far left Green New Deals. There's no way that neither I nor John Rossomando or anyone that studies this can know this, and our government does not. So why is Biden doing it? Why is Biden pushing it? Why did the Biden administration say okay to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? Why is he saying okay to regimes that are literally our enemies, like Iran and Venezuela? Basically what? So that they can pump more oil for us? We should be pumping the oil. We should have the reserves. We should be opening up federal lands to pump and search for our gas and our oil. We shouldn't be leaving it up to our enemies. Guys, haven't we learned our lesson? We're going to be talking about that. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. That's saracarter.com. And while you are there, I want you to sign up for our email list so that you do not get shadow banned. Sign up for our email list. You won't get shadow banned. That's what we need to do, okay? We need to keep together. We need to keep communicating because things are getting weird. They are getting really weird. And I feel as though, and I know you all feel as though, something is happening in the universe. I'm going to say this. I told my producers, I feel like it's when you lose your keys and they're right in front of you, but you can't seem to find them. And then when you find them, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not know they were right there? I feel like that is happening in our world right now, and we're all feeling it, but we don't exactly know what it is. But before I get to John Rossomando, I want to talk to you about mypillow.com, mypillow.com. I love it. I love Mike Lindell. I love what he does for us. I love the fact that it's an American company and that he's a great patriot, and nothing beats his luxurious towel sets. Nothing. I'm telling you, I love having them. I give them to my family. I give the sheets, the Giza Dream sheets, the dog beds for all of my dogs. It's great products. My slippers for my husband, for my kids, for me. And right now he has a super special, and I'm very excited. And it's if you use the promo code Carter, and it's on his towel sets. They're regularly $109.99. Now you can get them for, guess what? The full set, all 6 pieces, for $39.99. And it's made in the USA. It doesn't have that weird lotiony feel. It comes with 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths. And I'm telling you, they hold up great. They're great towels. For a limited time only, you get the MyPillow 6-piece towel set, regularly $109.99. Listen to this, for only $39.99 with the promo code Carter. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. You'll also find deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow Giza Dream sheets, and so much more. Get your 6-piece MyPillow towel set for only $39.99 today at mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221, mypillow.com/Carter. So I don't know if you've all been watching the news because, I think some people are just shutting it off because they are so frustrated. We're so frustrated, right? Watching what's happening in our world. Russia on its nuclear ready, Russian troops on the border of Poland, the possibility that Vladimir Putin could use chemical weapons in Ukraine. He's already indiscriminately killing Ukrainian people, residents, people that don't even have weapons, children, women. He is right on the cusp of taking Kyiv. And he may have taken Kyiv by the time I say this. what are we going to do? What is NATO going to do? Look who we have in office. Look who we have in office. I believe in the American system. I want this administration to be amazing. I really do. I do not want my child's future or that of my grandchildren or that of our friends and our family and the future generations of Americans to be destroyed. But in the last year, this administration has operated, literally like our enemies would want them to. They've opened the border wide open. They haven't protected our nation from our enemies. The only job that President Biden literally has to do is to protect the national security of our country. That's it. That is his job. Stay out of our business, stay out of our lives, stop destroying this country, stop over-regulating, stay out of our business, take care of our nation so that we get us prepared, so that we are ready in case an enemy decides to confront us. And right now, I do not know what is going to happen with NATO. Right now, I'm reading stories that, if they use chemical weapons in Ukraine, NATO could be activated because, of course, chemical weapons, there's nothing worse, than a nuclear attack, than the use of chemical weapons on innocent people. And what if they cross into Poland, or what if they move into Lithuania? What happens in the future, right? And I talked about that on a past podcast when we were talking about the domino effect. What happens? And right now, just as I said in my previous podcast on the domino effect, I said, one nation we are not paying attention to, a nation that we need to pay attention to is Iran. In all of this mess is Iran. Why? Because the Biden administration is intent on reinstating the Obama legacy of the Iran nuclear deal, the worst deal in American history, I believe. They're intent on it. And what did Iran do, by the way? What did Iran do just recently? Why? They sent missiles into Iraq and they attacked Erbil. And by the way, I've been to Erbil. I spent time there in 2010. I traveled all the way up to Sinjar and along the border of Syria when Islamic State was in power. Remember when we were trying to upend that terrorist organization when the Obama administration completely failed in Syria? And I want you to think about this. When the Arab Spring rose up during the Obama administration, and then there was the civil war that broke out in Syria during the Arab Spring, and then that tyrant Assad, who still sits in power. And President Obama drew that red line and he said, you will not use chemical weapons. If you do, they even allocated money for it in our budget. We are going to attack you. We are going to remove you. And what did they do? They did nothing. Do you want to know what they did? They turned over everything to Russia. That's what Obama did. Go back and look. Go back and look. And even during the Obama administration, prior to the Iran nuclear deal, the Obama administration removed the sanctions from Russia so that Russia and Iran could deal up. And that's exactly what they did. And it's frightening. It is frightening what has happened. And right now, Iran had sent 12 missiles to hit Erbil. And some landed right near the U.S. consulate. Now, I was in the U.S. consulate in Erbil. It's in the Christian area of Erbil. And it's on this little road in front of a big hotel. It's down the street from this hotel that a lot of U.S. and foreign, UN folks and others stay at. People who are visiting Erbil. And you can go in there and you can literally walk down the street. There's a little coffee shop right next to it. And when I went to the U.S. consulate there, I remember, and by the way, it's Peshmerga, the Peshmerga military there. It's different than the rest of Iraq. These are Kurdish people in Erbil, and the Kurdish people are great people. They are great people. They see themselves as Kurdish first. Then, if they're Muslim, they're Muslim. And then if they're Christian, they're Christian. It's just a different world there. It's phenomenal. I even celebrated Ramadan with a family up there, but before I took my long road trip past Mosul and prayed that I would not get kidnapped by Islamic State. Thank God that did not happen because I was actually more terrified there than I ever was in my whole life. But now, you have 12 missiles that hit Erbil, and there's all this talk Some people are saying, even in our own administration, well, you know what? It doesn't look like they were trying to hit the consulate. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were sending a message. The Iranians are watching our weakness now. And they know that we're weak because we're focused, right? We have to be focused on Russia. We have to be, look at what's happening in the United States. And the Iranians have directly threatened the previous administration. Why? Because President Trump ordered the killing of the world's greatest terrorist, the head of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, General Soleimani, who's responsible for the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world. This guy was a monster. And now Iran wants to save face. They want to get us back. They have made that perfectly clear. In fact, they have threatened John Bolton, our former ambassador, and who worked very closely with President Trump as a national security advisor. They're threatening others in the administration. And if you don't think that the Iranians can do it, the Iranians can find a way. They were the ones that were going to try to assassinate the ambassador from Saudi Arabia in Washington, D.C., until the DEA stumbled across the source that had information in Mexico. They had actually recruited people in Mexico. This is a fact. If you don't remember it, go look at the Department of Justice website, because people were taken into custody, and thank God it was broken. But right now we see 12 missiles, ballistic missiles in an unprecedented assault on the capital of the autonomous Iraqi Kurdish region. And I am saying this is going to get far worse. Iranian state media says that Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, think about it. We killed General Soleimani. He headed the Guard Corps, right? Carried out the attack. And they said it was against Israeli strategic centers in Erbil, suggesting it was revenge for recent Israeli airstrikes that killed Iranian military personnel in Syria. Let me tell you this. This has been going on for some time. The Iranians are in a proxy war with Israel. They want to control the whole Arab region, the whole Middle East. This is the reason why Saudi Arabia is infuriated right now with Joe Biden. This is the reason why other Arab states are infuriated with Joe Biden, because they would rather see Iran be toppled than even the state of Israel. They are so worried about the Iranian government taking control of the Middle East. And guess what? Our president is handing it over to them. Everything that President Biden's administration has done is basically turn over what we have, our security, the only thing he is responsible for, to our enemies. Why? That's why I have John Rossomando on the show. Wait until you hear what he has to say. It's going to blow your mind. Literally going to blow your mind how even some of these organizations, these NGOs, they're so wonderful. Oh, they're helping the poor. Oh my goodness. Look, they want to save our earth, and our environment. And our children really believe in it. And our school teachers are teaching them this. And guess what? They are being manipulated. They are the useful idiots of the Russian communist government. I don't care what you think is happening in Russia now, but I can tell you this, that Vladimir Putin is a former KGB student. He is a believer in the Marxist ideology, at least the part about the power, and he knows how to play these games. I don't care if KGB changed to FSB. It's still the same old, same old. And they were brilliant at this. And during the Cold War, they developed strategies against the United States that were incredible. They infiltrated our country, just as we tried to do the same against them during the Cold War, but they infiltrated our country. For those of you who haven't seen The Americans, go see it because it's awesome. And actually, there was a consultant on that show that I had an opportunity to speak with, and he was a former KGB agent that eventually turned against the Soviets and went to the United States. And he was just brilliant the way he consulted for the show The Americans. It's a great show. Now you can binge the whole dang thing. But I'm telling you, some of us get played. This is a very dangerous time. Very dangerous time. And believe me, the Iranians know it. And they did. They sent a message. They're showing their strength and power because they see a weak president. They see a weak president. Instead of a crystal clear response from our government to show that this will never be tolerated, you know what the State Department did? They issued a statement. They issued a statement saying that it was wrong, but they pretend that the missiles weren't being aimed at us. What? Why would you do such a thing when you know for certain that there's a reason that this happened and that the Iranians had threatened us? Ned Price downplays the ballistic missile attack on Erbil. This is what he says. This is from the State Department, from Ned Price. We have no indications the attack was directed at the United States. Well, heck, the attack was directed directly at our allies, the great Kurdish people. And by the way, it was directed at us because they know exactly where the consulate's office is. And by the way, that area had been attacked before. And by the way, it was 2015. I may have said 2010 earlier, but it was 2015 when I was there. And it was about maybe, I don't even know if it was months before or 6 months before, but I remember when I got to Erbil, that area had just been rebuilt, but there was still some areas of damage because there was a terrorist attack on that same road and it killed people that were sitting at a cafe there. Just before I got there, I remember because everybody was talking about it. And I had to go into the consulate and meet with people there, let them know I was in country and give them a briefing of where I was going to be going so that in case something happened to me, they could contact my family. And that's how, terrifying it is when you're a journalist overseas and you're working in war zones. And I did hear about the death of a journalist that in Ukraine that was killed by the Russians, by the way. An American journalist who had worked in the past with the New York Times. Brent Renowned, he is an American journalist, and he was directly killed by enemy fire. That is how dangerous it is to report overseas and tell the truth about what is going on. So basically, our government keeps ceding its power and its authority to our enemies. Why? Why are they doing this? I want you to listen to this. This is Idaho Senator Jim Risch. He is the top Republican on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He told Fox News Sunday that the U.S. is not even in the room negotiating. They won't even be in the room negotiating. Biden is planning to accept a plan from 3 nations that literally hate us.
This was an awful deal when it was made the first time around. What we're hearing, and we're getting only leakage, it's going to be worse this time than what it was. Now, you got to remember what's happening here. You got a room that the Iranians are sitting at the table. The Russians and the Chinese are in there. They don't even let the U.S. delegation in that room. They're sitting at the kids' table out in the hall, peeking through the keyhole to see what's going on. So you got the Iranians and the Russians negotiating a deal for us.
I want to put this in perspective to you. The U.S. basically agreed to sitting outside of these negotiations. I don't even understand this. Won't negotiate exemptions to Ukraine-related sanctions on Russia to save the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. And they could try to strike a separate accord, excluding Moscow. And this is from the Wall Street Journal, guys. A senior U.S. official said, in a diplomatic effort complicated by an Iranian missile attack on Iraq that sent American troops rushing for shelter. I told you, this is an area. And the consulate, this is an area, though, that is, directly impacted by Western visitors in Iraq, right? And this is the Christian sector of Erbil. And I've stayed in both the Christian and the Muslim sector. Great areas. I've never had an issue in Erbil. Only issue I had was, please God, don't let, ISIS kidnapped me during that time. That was just the only thing I kept saying over and over again, because that's what I was worried about. But the Peshmerga were phenomenal, and the Kurdish people were phenomenal. But I want to read this to you really quick, and then I want you to think about it, and then we're going to go to John Rossomando. With one of President Biden's top foreign policy goals imperiled, the U.S. official said, this is the official that talked to the Wall Street Journal, that Washington would start exploring alternatives to the deal over the next week if Russia didn't back away from its demands for written guarantees exempting Russia from Ukraine-related sanctions that could curtail its future trade with Iran. Such guarantees could undercut the West's punishing array of sanctions leveled at Russia over the Ukraine invasion. Why would Vladimir Putin stop? Why would he stop? We're giving him everything he wants. Everything. This is the quote. I don't see the scope for going beyond what is within the confines of the JCPOA. The U.S. official said he was referring to the 2015 nuclear deal, formerly known, right, as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Plan of no action. They just gave everything over to Iran then. I think it's pretty safe to say that there is no room for making exemptions beyond those. Meanwhile, Iran's top paramilitary force took responsibility for the attack. By the way, top paramilitary force, I hate the way, Wall Street Journal said the top terrorist organization in Iran claimed that they were hitting Israeli targets. It's a lie. They have an ongoing proxy war with Israel. That is true. But that's not the reason why they hit that. They hit that to send a message to the United States, and then they used the excuse as Israel. It said the strike was in response to recent Israeli actions in the region, which included an airstrike last week in Syria that killed 2 of the group's commanders. That's what they said, but that's not true. The Iranian attack is likely to create more regional resistance to American efforts to strike a new nuclear containment deal with Iran. The U.S. effort to resurrect the deal with Iran, which then President Donald Trump withdrew from in 2018. He was right to withdraw from it. Remember, it was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn who insisted on that. And he came out in front of the White House and he made that statement. And I'm going to tell you this right now. The reason they went after Flynn so hard was because Flynn knew where the bodies were buried and Flynn wanted to destroy this deal because it is the worst thing for the United States of America. And you all should be very well aware that any deal with Iran, any deal with Russia, and by the way, leaving out, sitting at the kids' table, the senator's right. You're going to put America outside sitting at the kids' table? Oh my gosh, guys, what's going to happen? I'm worried for my kids. I'm worried for my nation. This is just like the first year of this presidency. And I feel as though they are doing this on purpose. I tweet this out all the time. I say it all the time. November cannot come fast enough. 2024 cannot come fast enough. I'm just afraid that we're going to see the breakage, the destruction, the weakening of our nation to the point where we may not be able to resurrect the greatness back again, at least not in time. We are falling so far behind, and this administration is handing everything to the enemy. Believe me, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela. I mean, I can keep naming Cuba. These are not friends of ours. They are working against us. And we are at the precipice. And like I said at the top of this monologue, I feel like, you know what? I feel like the answer is right in front of our face. We all feel it. It's like when you lose your keys or you got your glasses up on top of your head, you know what I mean? And you're sitting there and you're like, where are my glasses? Where are my keys? And then eventually you find them and you feel like an idiot for not seeing them. That's the way that I feel right now. That's the way that I feel right now. I don't have the answers as to why the Biden administration is so eager to cut these deals. The only thing that I can think of is that somehow maybe they're compromised. Why would you want to give the enemy? Why would you want to hand the enemy everything? Why would they do this? And I believe their lies about President Trump were a reflection of what they are, were a reflection of who they are and what they've been doing. That's the only answer I can come up with. Because I'm telling you, I would not sacrifice my family. I would never do that no matter what. But I feel like he's sacrificing our nation. What are they trying to hide? What does Russia, China, Iran, what do all these countries have on them? We've seen it with Hunter Biden, but I don't think we know the full story yet. I really don't. I really don't. Before we get to John Rossomando and into all of the great stuff that he's going to be telling us, because let me tell you, he has details that I don't think anyone else has talked about before, and you're not going to want to miss it. But I want to tell you a little bit about planting. I know it sounds crazy, but I have a great sponsor for this, for the Sara Carter Show that I truly think is awesome. Why? Because I love to garden. I do. I love gardening. And if your yard is starting to look like a plant cemetery, mine is because of the winter. You're not going to enjoy it as much, right? So get your place looking like a resort easily with, guess what? Fast growing trees. This is so awesome. Look, when it comes to caring for your plants, know-how matters. Fast growing trees experts, they basically curate thousands of plant varieties that will thrive in your specific climate, location, and needs. And their advice is available, guess what? 24/7. So you don't have to go searching all over the internet for like, is this plant going to survive a Texas winter? Is it going to survive a Maine winter or a California summer? You could just go right online and they're available for you 24/7, 24/7. Whether you're looking for increased privacy, shade, or adding some natural beauty to your yard, Fast Growing Trees has the perfect plants and expertise to help you find them. What an awesome business idea, right? I mean, how cool is that? How many times have you just gone to Home Depot and it's been hard to find someone or anybody, to tell you exactly what you need and what kind of plants you want to put this way, or any gardening center. I mean, you could still go, and I still love to do that too, but you can really talk to someone at Fast Growing Trees. They can give you exactly what you're going to need. They ship it right to your front door. You take it, you plant it. It's amazing. Plus, with their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, you can trust everything will be healthy for years to come. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter right now, and you'll get 15% off your entire order. Can you believe that? Get 15% off fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter, fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter. I am so grateful to have John Rossomando here. He served as a senior analyst on counterterrorism at the Investigative Project for Terrorism for 8 years. He is a friend of mine. He's widely published at media ranging from the Daily Wire to the Daily Caller to Newsmax. And it is at Newsmax that he wrote a very interesting column. It was showing how pro-Putin non-governmental organization lobbied aggressively for the far left Green New Deal and against the Keystone XL pipeline. John, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Sarah. The thing with this not NGO, it's not just any NGO. It was created by the East German Communist Party in 1990 after the fall of the Berlin Wall and on the eve of reunification. And it's controlled, or rather managed, by numerous former Stasi people. And the Stasi, for your listeners, was the East German secret police that was managed by the KGB. The interesting thing that I found was that there's a strong connection between Vladimir Putin and this organization, because Putin was a KGB guy in Dresden, and one of the leaders of this organization in the 1980s was a guy by the name of Hans Madra, who was the party leader. He's the last communist prime minister of East Germany. And also, I found that the head of the Nord Stream pipeline company is connected with two of the leaders of this Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, because he worked for them when East Germany still was a thing.
I'm blown away, John. Wait, I'm blown away because I have heard about this in the past. And, I had heard rumors, right? You're an incredible investigative journalist as well as an analyst. I've always respected the work that you've done because I think you put so much into the detail. But the fact that we have been bamboozled on so many levels by the communists or by the Russians under Vladimir Putin, when it comes to these issues, we have a lot of people here, of course, environmentalists, we want to go green, we want to save our planet. And I don't think what they realize is that some of the people pushing these agendas, like you're stating right now, are actually lobbyists that are working with NGOs that are connected directly to the Kremlin. And I would assume that this happens with China as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can see a lot of different communist organizations that the media doesn't say are communist. I mean, I follow the communist movement in America going back to 2001 when CNSnews.com had me cover a protest against the World Bank outside the White House. When I went and looked through it, there was communist. So it's something that's been lurking under the surface, but people haven't taken the time to look into it.
Well, tell me a little bit more about this non-governmental organization and its connection to Vladimir Putin. And I want you to go into it because you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of background on Vladimir Putin. Tell me a little bit about his makeup, because we know he was with the FSB very young. He was a communist believer. He was a believer in, the greatness of, I guess, Mother Russia and the USSR. Talk a little bit about that, about the old Soviet style and why he may be doing what he is doing now.
Well, the English author and podcaster Mark Felton went and looked into Putin's background, and it just came out in the past 24 hours. And he found that Putin was a committed Marxist-Leninist in his early schooling. And when Putin was in East Germany as a KGB major, he oversaw the Stasi's effort to use the Red Army faction, which was a terrorist organization, against the West. I mean, he also was involved with supporting neo-Nazis and so forth. The whole idea that the KGB had was to take their enemies and get them fighting among themselves. They've been massively successful. And, the thing that I find kind of interesting, I didn't even know it existed until I started, researching this most recent article on Newsmax, was that the Rosa Luxemburg's Foundation's representative in Moscow is a woman by the name of Kirsten Kaiser. She was a Stasi agent who wrote reports for the KGB in the 1970s. And also, she's part of something that Vladimir Putin and Gerhard Schröder, the former German prime minister who has basically become Putin's lapdog and is a member of the board of directors of Gazprom, which is the Russian state oil and gas company. This woman is part of that. And there's another Rosa Luxemburg Foundation member who also is a former Stasi member named Andre Brie, who's also been active with American academics. And this Petersberger Dialogue was established and has been used by Putin to manipulate German politics. That's probably one of the reasons that the Germans are so reluctant to go in full bore against Russia and Ukraine. And do you know who the head of the Russian delegation is? The head of Gazprom. So do the math.
Okay, I want to take us back a little bit just for everybody out there that's listening to John right now, because John is brilliant. He really is. Everyone respects his work. Insiders in Washington all know who you are. I mean, I don't know how many people on the outside really, now that you're on Newsmax and you're doing a lot more news, you're out there, but you really get into the details of these things. When John Solomon and I started writing about Ukraine, and John followed that up and he did a book on it, on energy, one of the biggest things coming from our source at the time, William Campbell, who I adore, and I think he's a wonderful man and had been through a lot, was the fact that Vladimir Putin was intent and still is intent on being number one in energy in the world. He wants to control the commodity of energy worldwide. That was his big goal. And also, was involved with Gazprom, and he used Gazprom and the people within the companies, the various companies in Russia, to kind of scope the world to take control of oil and gas commodities to become number one. And I think that with the United States, I think there was an extraordinary failure. We saw that with our Ukraine investigation. There was an extraordinary failure on our part to recognize that, to recognize what was really happening. And some of our leadership, I can talk even in the past, gave up a lot of our resources and gave up a lot of our control of our energy to the Russians. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that, our entire focus over the past, generation has been, starting with the whole movement for outsourcing, finding ways to make a quick buck by getting rid of, domestic production and domestic manufacturing and so forth, which, if this war in Ukraine happens to become World War III, we are going to be in a real world of hurt because we lack the resources. I mean, the thing that I find kind of interesting is that the president keeps talking, well, we need green energy, we need green energy. But he's not talking about where that green energy comes from. He's not talking about the fact that you need dirty mining in order to obtain the materials for the batteries, the high-tech electronics. I mean, the same people who have argued against developing U.S. oil and gas are the same people who argued against American exploitation of rare earths on our soil. I mean, they closed down most of the mines in the United States because they were polluting the water and things of that sort. So, I mean, Putin has worked with this organization, or at least the Stasi people have, to promote the Green New Deal on both sides of the Atlantic. It's back in 2014, after Putin invaded Crimea, the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation had a seminar where they talked about opposing the Keystone XL pipeline.
That's incredible to me. Talk about that in detail. Talk about what happened with the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation and the Keystone XL pipeline, because most people do not know, John, what you know. Most people, they hear it, and it's very much just kind of a surfacey generalization that, they're cutting off the Keystone pipeline again. We're not going to reinstate it because we want to save our planet. We want to save the United States. I mean, we don't want to damage our environment. But in all reality, we're moving a lot of those same commodities on trains. We're moving them all over the country in trucks. I mean, it would be much cleaner, I would think, to move it in a pipeline. So explain why the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation is doing this and how this benefits Russia.
Well, the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, its number one MO is training and organizing different organizations on the far left and bringing them together and coordinating them, having training sessions. Like in August 2014, they had a get-together with different socialist factions in upstate New York, where they talked about tactics that they could use to impede the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, from messaging to activism. Actually, the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation partnered with Cornell University to write a report on using union tactics to oppose the Keystone XL pipeline, also in 2014. So, the number one thing that the left is really good at, that, the right can learn from, is organizing. And the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation is an organizing thing. And if you look at the fact that the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation's office in New York was established by a guy by the name of Gregor Gysi, who was the head of the East German Communist Party at the end of 1989, after the wall fell. And he worked with the Soviets and then the Russians to keep the Stasi files sealed. This is the kind of people these people are. I'm sure that a lot of the people who work for them are basically useful idiots. They don't know who they're being manipulated by or whichever. But if you look at the preponderance of former Stasi people in the leadership of this organization, you can see that they're in Putin's pocket.
Let me ask you this. I have a very close friend who is a source of mine, and a long time ago. And one of the things that they had warned me about over and over again, and I'm talking, this was nearly 20 years ago, right? When I was breaking stories on USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And there were a number of sources, whistleblowers that came forward. It became a very, in a way, it was a frightening subject for me, because I was a young journalist, and people in Washington, D.C., particularly those connected to USCIS at the time, were warning me not to write certain stories, were threatening me with certain things, like not my life, but with my career. And I remember this source that was a very important person, an analyst that worked in the intelligence agencies, had said, the Russians know how to break the Soviet style, the old communists knew how to break a nation because they could basically, what they did was they infiltrated the bureaucracies, right? So we've seen an infiltration of the bureaucracies. We've, with just ideological, useful idiots, and as well as the NGOs. Do you think that we were all asleep at the wheel, that we didn't even see this coming because we're such a grateful nation? I mean, I think we have so much of an abundance that, I mean, we all of a sudden woke up in the last few years and we're like, what the heck happened? You know, I mean, it's like,
absolutely.
How do you juxtapose that, for example, that you have this foundation, this NGO, right? And it is basically founded by people that were definitely opposed to the principles of the United States, founded by people that were communists, and how they tried to express themselves. I mean, they must know that they're fooling everyone. I mean, that this Green New Deal, these new energy, environmentalist advocacy groups that they are running, that they are a part of, are really not working to benefit the United States, but instead they're making us dependent on Russian oil and gas.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is that most of the people are useful idiots. They going back to McCarthyism. I mean, they've been able to milk that for all it's worth for the past almost 70 years, and get us to look away from what the Soviets used to call, and the Russians call, active measures, where they use something called United Front tactics, where they partner with non-communist groups that are more liberal and so forth. And if you look at Saul Alinsky, he said not use Marxist-Leninist terminology. So we start using things about democracy, freedom, liberty, but we change the meanings. And look at the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. They know how to play this game. They know how to manipulate and organize these disparate groups, to bring us to our knees. I mean, the Soviets, going back to like the 1980s. Do you remember the nuclear winter? And how everybody. Well, nuclear winter was created by the KGB. So, I mean, that shows how a KGB narrative went mainstream in America.
And I don't think many people know that. Explain the nuclear winter and what happened with that, because a lot of our listeners may not be familiar with this.
Well, it's something that I heard, when I was in school back in the 80s, that constantly that if there, you ended up having a nuclear exchange, the world, we would end up having like a winter, the sun wouldn't be able to see the sun for 50 years, 60
right.
years or something like that. You'd have famine and so forth. I mean, the Soviets were heavily involved in the, nuclear freeze movement that Joe Biden supported. Joe
right.
Biden was a supporter of Leonid Brezhnev's effort to push this, the SALT II treaty that the Russians cheated on. And it was so bad that even Jimmy Carter backed out of it. But Biden kept pushing it. Biden opposed Reagan every time he went to try to put like the Pershing II missiles that ended up helping to end the Cold War.
Let me ask you this, John. Let me ask you this, because that's such an important point. Because everything we're seeing that's happening now, and granted, he's putting sanctions against Russia now, the administration's trying, but they didn't do anything to stop it. They didn't proactively react to what was happening in Ukraine. And do you think that something's going on here? Is Biden just sold out on the Russian narrative without even realizing it?
I wrote an article in December 2020 in the Epoch Times saying about how Biden doesn't understand deterrence. That you have to be out in front. He opposed Reagan on, the arms buildup. He opposed the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. He opposed every single major system that the United States military has used as the core of its force for the past 40-some years. And, Biden's always been, he was a supporter of détente, which was, the Soviets' active measures to say, we want to be all one big happy family here. And, the Soviets ended up using their means to steal technology from us. Does that sound familiar? Joe
right.
Biden has been in this sort of like Russia appeasement since 1975 at the earliest. I mean, when Joe Biden said that we shouldn't be involved in anti-communist activities.
Do you think that the media, John, has played into allowing this to happen? Because, what's so fascinating to me is that most people on the left, people that supported Joe Biden from the very beginning, who didn't do their research, who don't know a lot about his history, and even some of those that do, believe in their own minds that Joe Biden is tough on Russia, believe in their own minds that Joe Biden is tough on China, and absolutely believed in the lies that were being disseminated against President Trump. And that was backed, let's be honest, by the mainstream media, because they never even corrected the record for the most part. I mean, once you throw the lie out there, I mean, the Russians know this very well, it sticks to a large extent. I'm going to ask you that. And then my final question for you, John, is, this is so insane. When we know about all of these, I mean, how we're being played. But as a regular person, what can we do about it? I mean, what can we do about when our own government refuses to ramp up our own energy production and refuses to hold accountable these NGOs? We've seen them from George Soros's NGOs, Open Society Foundation, to the foundations that you were just discussing, these foundations accountable for what they are doing.
Well, I think that raising awareness like we're doing is in the midst of it. I think that we don't have an independent press in this country. We have basically Democratic Party far left ideologues posing as reporters. I mean, Brent Bozell started raising the issue of media bias back in the 1980s and 1990s. And, it's only gotten worse. I mean, now they're kind of like proud of it. They don't want to criticize their narratives. The thing about the left is it's about narratives. It's not about fact. It's about feelings, not about, this is somebody trying to play games or not somebody trying to manipulate me. This is somebody trying to, use it. So it basically starts, you want to change things, go after the colleges, go after, the universities where they're teaching this nonsense. And, maybe we need to start thinking about educational reform to require colleges to become true open platforms. I mean, starting with, legislation on the state level, equal time, because one of the things I studied was math psychology, for my master's. And the thing that I found is there's something called psychological totalism. If all people hear is just the one side, it creates a propaganda narrative and an echo chamber. So we need to work to end the echo chamber on college campuses.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's absolutely true. I think that so many of our parents, so many of us, and for many decades, we're asleep at the wheel. I like to say we're asleep at the wheel and thinking, well, we're sending our kids to college. They're getting a good education. Of course, they're somewhat liberal, but that's what happens at the university. And what they weren't paying attention to was that the majority of our universities here in the United States were I guess, brainwashing grounds to take the children, to take college students and turn them against the basic fundamental principles that make our nation so beautiful, so free, a beacon of light, instead teaching them socialism and communism and turning a lot of the students against this government, against our government. And I think we're seeing that now and we're paying the price for it. John, I can't thank you enough for being on the Sara Carter Show. You know what? I don't even know why you haven't been on before, but you're brilliant. And the stuff that you talk about is like beyond my knowledge capability, and your work is so incredible. I hope you come back on.
I will. Hey, I'm happy to come on anytime, Sarah.
I don't know about you, but I'm bringing back John Rossomando again. I just have the greatest guests on the Sara Carter Show, don't you think? Like, I'm always surprised, too, like at what they tell me sometimes. Like, I'm just like, wait a minute. I can't believe the amount of research he did into that. Just incredible, incredible stuff. You guys, before I get to the end of the show, I want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. Mike Fulgens and Universal Coin and Bullion. He is America's gold expert and the 2021 Numismatic Dealer of the Year. And he is predicting, and I guess as we all are right now, that silver prices will continue to rise as inflation and industrial use follow their upward trends. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing that everywhere. It's crazy times. We know who we have in office, and we know why we've got to be paying attention to this. So that's why his company, Universal Coin and Bullion, is now offering you a new 2022 genuine 1-ounce silver American Eagle coin at just $28 with free shipping direct to you. Everyone should own a percentage of precious metals. So call Universal Coin and Bullion today at 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Make sure to mention me by name when you call. That's 1-800-UCB-GOLD to get a tangible asset that you can hold in your hand. Call 1-800-UCB-GOLD, Universal Coin and Bullion, and their expert team of representatives will help you order your $28 American Silver Eagle coin today. 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Don't forget to tell them Sara sent you. Okay, now before we wrap it up, I wanted to get to a story. It's actually on my website at saracarter.com, saracarter.com. Go there for the latest stories and also to get, all of the connects to my social media, as well as you can download the podcast there. You can go Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can get it at my website at saracarter.com. One of the top stories on our website, and one that a lot of you are paying attention to, is this 2021 ICE report, which shows significantly less or fewer arrests, I like to say that, and deportations under Biden. But I want to tell you something. There is something going on with this report, and I'm probably going to get into it a lot more in an upcoming episode, but I have been talking to sources about what is going on with ICE, what is going on with these numbers. And let me read to you from our website really quick. Despite the additional hundreds of thousands of additional migrants attempting to cross the border into the United States, Immigration and Customs Enforcement made significantly less arrests and deportations in 2021 under the Biden administration than in previous years. Well, that's because they're letting them in. That's as simple as that. The report was released Friday by ICE for the 2021 fiscal year on Friday, showing a sharp decrease in the numbers of arrests and deportations of illegal immigrants from previous years. ICE agents arrested 74,082 non-citizens from October 2020 through September 2021, down from 103,603 arrests in the 2020 fiscal year and 143,099 arrests in the 2019 fiscal year. Deportations are also lower. The agency deported 59,011 non-citizens in that's it, guys, in 2021 fiscal year, compared with 185,000, almost 186,000, guys, deportations in 2020 fiscal year and 267,258 deportations during the 2019 fiscal year. And by the way, the numbers of people that have crossed that border for 2021 to 2022, near 2 million. I want you to think about that. But I've been talking to sources. I want to read to you really quick before I wrap this show up, because you're going to want to hear this about what's been going on and how terrible it is. About ending Title 42. This is going to be a complete shit show, said one of my sources along the border, a senior federal officer. Basically, Title 42 was being used on Mexicans and Central Americans. Absolutely no one else was subjected to it. And we are being flooded. So when Title 42 was in effect, because, Biden's doing nothing about it now, it was really only for Mexicans and Central Americans. But even when the Biden administration took over, they've been allowing everybody else in. So Title 42 didn't apply to them. Didn't apply if you were from Africa. It didn't apply if you were from Afghanistan. Didn't apply if you were from Iraq. It's just wherever you were coming from. Only those Title 42 remain in Mexico. I can only imagine, this is from my source, the millions of people extra coming from Central America and Mexico now who will be promptly released into the U.S. after this drops. Right now, we are getting busloads after busloads of everyone else from every other country. Trust me on this. Africans, South Americans, Indians, Cubans, etc. I can't even imagine how we will be able to handle triple or quadruple those numbers at the border when we can't even keep up as it is. We can't even keep up as it is. Can you imagine what it feels like to work there? On the border? Can you imagine what is going on here? And the national security implications of what is happening at our border now? And what could happen? God help us. Really, God help us. And by the way, God help our entire planet, because right now it is upside down. But I always try to leave with a glass half full analogy. And Rich, my producer, and I were talking about this before the podcast. And, I'm guessing people in World War I, before World War I erupted, felt the same way, like the world's just coming to an end. Before World War II, they felt the same way. before Vietnam, or, even during the Cold War with the threat of nuclear peril and the mutually assured destruction. Thank God that worked. We don't know about now, but we're, keeping our fingers crossed, that we always find a way. Humanity always finds a way to move forward. We are idiots sometimes, and we get ourselves into predicaments that we feel like we're never going to get out of. But somehow in the end, we find a way out of it. Why? Because we love our children, because we love our planet, because we love our world. At least I hope so. I try to see the good side of things, the better side of humanity. There are bad people out there. Vladimir Putin's one of them. Look, Elon Musk right now is asking him to a duel. I think that's awesome. That's a fun story. Go look that up. I mean, I love Elon Musk, SpaceX, and he tweeted out that he wants to battle, one-on-one with Vladimir Putin. I don't think Vladimir Putin's going to take him up on the deal, but who knows? And what is the prize? Ukraine, right? It was kind of fun. It was a fun thing to do in a time that's really tough. But let's try to look at the positive side. Let's all pray. For those of you who pray, 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 pray. I believe it works. Prayer works. And for those of you who don't pray, just take a moment of silence to, meditate on all the good things, that make our world so wonderful. You guys, thank you so much for being a part of this show. Thank you, John Rossomando, for being a part of this show and enlightening us with all of your incredible knowledge. And God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless the state of Texas. God bless Ukraine. And God bless all of us, our families, and our world, that we might find a better place and find ourselves in a much better position, I think, in November or 2024. See you soon.
Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. Can you share a little bit with the audience about your father, Dan Weber, and how he founded AMAC and why?
My father formed AMAC after he recognized that the AARP really was not representing his values, and those values were really faith, family, and freedom. And my father believed in America's greatness. He believed that there was what he described as a cultural shift occurring in our country. He thought that the very, very foundation, the Constitution, was being disregarded. And we saw that the power of government was growing and individual freedoms were diminishing, were being threatened. And to get more specific was in 2006 when he said to me that he was canceling his AARP membership. And I said to my father, why would you do that? And he said, well, they've just named Harry Belafonte Man of the Year. And he went on to say that Harry Belafonte had commented to Hugo Chavez saying that George W. Bush was the greatest terrorist threat in America. And my father said something is wrong with that. So he saw the AARP make this sharp left turn. And that was when he said, let's form AMAC. And I said, let's do it.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. For more information, folks, visit amac.us/Carter.